public access facilities, as we call them at APC, are also known as cyber cafes or internet cafes, and we also call them telecenters, and they've been called community media centers. And they used to be really popular in the early days of the internet. And then when the mobile broadband emerged, they lost popularity as people started using their personal devices to access the internet, and it was assumed that that would be the main trend. But however, since then, it's become quite apparent that these public access facilities are actually still needed. They provide a better experience for the user than a small smartphone, for example. A big screen with a good sound system can create a more immersive experience for training, education, telemedicine, etc. So people still needed alternatives to their own handheld devices, and not everyone could afford even the handheld device, but let alone a laptop. So it's been apparent that people still need some other form of access, a shared access, as we could put it. And it's not only about accessing the internet and broadband, but these public access facilities also have additional services often, such as being able to print a document or scanning a document, for example. And then in particular, having someone experienced with the use of the internet who manages the center is always a valuable resource for people who don't know very much about the internet, need help navigating and finding the information resources that they require. And then we've also found that people have found the need to have a safe place to navigate the internet that they might not find in the home, for example, or in the office. They want an independent facility to be able to ask sensitive information. So all of these factors together has meant that we're seeing a growing interest in the internet. And here at the APC's LockNet program, we're finding many of our partners and members are putting in these facilities. So they continue to play an important role in the provision of universal access. And hopefully we'll hear more from our experienced speakers in this area. So we're going to try and share some of these kind of experiences on this provision of public access and help community networks understand the considerations in developing their own public access facilities or in extending their networks through the use of public access. There are many different types of these facilities. You could say that a single terminal with a Wi-Fi hotspot is a kind of minimal public access facility. But then we also see large training centers with many workstations, also providing perhaps a training and repair and incubation, or even some sort of makerspace. There's technical considerations in terms of the amount of equipment that can be packed together, what type of human resources are required. Obviously, there are sustainability issues that need to be considered, such as cost recovery, integrating with the community network, finding local institutional supporters, etc. Panelists will also share their experience of these issues, and hopefully we'll have some discussion time with the participants of CNX to discuss any particular issues that are coming up. So I'd like to invite our first speaker, physical speaker, Melina, on the panel here to take us through her experience in Nepal with public access facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. So, hello everyone, and it's a bit weird, like I'm the only one present and everyone is on the screen, but let's continue with this, the advantage of internet itself. So, to share with, I am first with the introduction, I am Melina. I am working as team lead for Hello World in Nepal, and with Hello World, what we are doing is, we have this concept called Hello Hubs. So, what a Hello Hub is, it's a community space where there is a package of services. So to start with, since it's a community network, it's about the internet access. The internet is there for obvious. It's free and it's unlimited, accessible to everyone. And in addition to that, there are devices, physical electronics devices. We use tablets and laptops. So if someone want to access the internet, it's available there, but they don't own their personal devices, then they can use the devices available in the hub. And next thing is the power source to charge those devices, because like if there is electronics devices, there needs to be a power source. So we have clean, sustainable source, solar panels and batteries to charge those devices and to run the internet setup and the whole hub itself. So that is a Hello Hub. And in addition to that, we have a person called community support officer in each of the hub. So what a community support officer is a local person who is trained and who will run the hub on day-to-day basis, update everything, and like train the community members on how to use internet devices and other things too. So with this idea, how we run it is, it's a community-driven, community-focused project. So community are the first priority in it, what they want, what they need, and how they want it. So we start with the meetings with the community. So we get feedbacks from the community members, we ask them what they want, how they want to do it. So after that, then we start the actual process of the hub, like the build, the functioning, everything about that. So once we have the hub up and ready, even when we are building the hub in a community, we don't build it. We are there just to facilitate the process. So we will train the community members themselves to build the hub, whether that be like setting up a charging station, setting up the solar panel, or making the internet connection, setting up the internet connection. We train them to do that. We start from the basic, from the tools, how to use the tools, what is the output of like any, where is the output port, what is the input port. We start from the basic and we guide them through the process to the build itself. So when they are trained enough, so what it brings out is the community ownership among the community members. So the community ownership about the hub itself, what it does was, because community members feel like they are related to the hub, they own the hub and it's their own. So once they have that feeling, they will start like working on it, protecting it, running it. So it's like a sustainability model itself in the community. So it is like the as I said earlier, a community-driven project itself. So in that, so it is what we do in Hello World. So my colleague Dave is also here, so he will be adding more on the technical aspects and the sustainability and those parts of the projects. Thank you, Mike.
So I think, yes, probably appropriate now to invite Dave Mugerwa, who is the technical lead for Project Hello World globally, and they have a vast experience in setting up these centers around the world. And I'd love it if, Dave, if you could give us your observations for the next 10 minutes or so about the key factors that you consider when you're setting up these centers.
Thank you, Mike. Morning, everyone. And Melina, thanks for that wonderful introduction. I think as we look into public access, there is an assumption, as Mike mentioned, that there has been a lot of digital adoption within the space, but you find that most of this is existing in the urban spaces. And as you move more towards remote areas, you find that there is no access to technology, whether this is devices, there may be coverage of connectivity, there may be a few towers or satellite coverage, but you find that there is no infrastructure that community can use for digital transformation. So at the core, I think the main purpose and the role that a public access plays is to extend to that last mile person who even at the moment would not be able to get access to connectivity. So these centers, I think, play a very critical role in making sure everyone is involved. As we talk about digital inclusion, how are we making sure that a grandma somewhere, maybe in India, has access to a device? And this doesn't have to be something that is coming out of their livelihood. So by design, the premises of a public access area should be communally owned. And at Hello World, we say this needs to be a space that is agreed upon by everyone in the community. So as Melina mentioned, there are a lot of community engagements that happen at the beginning. Some of the conversations are, where should this space be? The community community usually knows best. They know which places are secure. They know which places have the most impact, whether this is the public school in the community, or it is the local health center, or it is a bus stop. So a lot of this should be informed by the community, and they will guide you as a community network or as a community that is setting up their hub to be able to identify the area for this. Then around the design, I think one of the things that we are very critical early on was creating a space that is welcoming, a place where children will feel safe, a place where women will feel safe, where adolescent girls can come and know nothing will be happening to me when I'm at this space. So as we think about ways of creating these public access areas, we need to reflect heavily on how the physical space has been designed. Is it inclusive? Have we considered things like a few ramps as you are putting up a structure where people can access the space? As you look at devices, are you factoring in a number of other aspects, maybe for people who are differently abled and maybe may need a speech, text-to-speech translation as they interact with the devices? So when we design for the public, it's not the same as working, let's say, for a school where, you know, it's specifically children and this is what they'll want. Here you are looking at an array of individuals who use the space. So all age groups will be there, youth will be there, elderly people will be there. And it's upon, I think, you as the implementer of the public access space to make sure these considerations are taken into account. And one of the key areas, as Melina mentioned, is skilling the community. This can go a long way in making sure the project lives for a long time. So if you notice a lot of the areas, we say the community builds the hub. The hub is built by the community and for the community. And I'm sure this is the same way that community networks are built. They're built by the community for the community. So you need to make sure a lot of these skills are transferred on to the community. Do they understand the value of this infrastructure you are putting into the community? A lot of challenges that I usually hear when I speak to community networks is our equipment was vandalized. Did the community understand the value of that equipment? Because if it's what you're using for your child to learn and do their homework, it's very hard that you'll go and vandalize that. So having community learn, first of all, the technical skills, be heavily involved in the day-to-day operation, the management, who in the community have they chosen to be a part of the management group that oversees the activities that are there, who is setting up the rules and regulations and guidelines that are controlling this public access space. Because as you know, when we speak about community, it's a lot of groups of people. Different groups will have different ways they operate. And it's this localized management that will be able to set up what the rules for the space are, guidelines for them, when should they be coming. We move into equipment. One of the things to heavily reflect upon is sustainability of the space. And this goes into what kind of technology we are using. Melina mentioned it's solar energy, and this was by design to make sure it's something that community will be able to sustain. If you have a generator, then community needs to think about where the fuel for the generator is going to come from. But if you do have a solution that is running itself, it eliminates a lot of the burden that is being transferred to the community. And also, it should be a holistic approach to what equipment you are using there. You shouldn't just provide power and you're like, our community will figure out the rest. If you are availing power and connectivity, what will community use to access the internet? Then you need to have devices. If the devices are there, do they cater to everyone? If they do not, and I think this sort of takes us into a bit around financing and power to make sure the space is sustainable. Who else, which other stakeholders in your community are you involving? Is it the local government and asking them to work with you to make sure some of these missing pieces are there? So you find that a number of local governments usually will have some initiatives either for community access to devices or connectivity, and they are very willing to work with you as a community network or someone who is setting up public access, because this is for the good of the community. When you speak to internet service providers and you share with them the work that you're doing, some of them are open to availing data at a heavily discounted rate or at under CSR, under a plan where you do not have to remit currency to them. In some areas, you'll find, I know a case in point, we've before spoken with an ISP for equipment, and they had equipment they were decommissioning, and they're like, oh, we like the work that you're doing. If in case you need network equipment, this is available for you to use. And as community networks and people working on these spaces, these are things that we can tap into to sort of bring to us the equipment required, the resources required, because everyone usually has a question, how will this operate? If the community is, let's say everyone is welcome to access and it's free of charge, how are the costs covered? And it's been an interesting experience exploring a number of sustainability models, whether this is vouchers that the community accesses, but with, let's say, an hour or 30 minutes where they get free access, so that then it's including everyone. And if someone is a heavy user, maybe then they move to the paid plan. Or things like a jar at the center where people who come and use the space drop in money that can be used maybe to buy water or clean the space. So there are a lot of sustainability approaches, and no single solution would fit all the communities. I think a lot of this would depend on the type of community that you're working with, and a lot of consultation with them to figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what would thrive. Then I see my time is almost done, but I'll drop in two things. The first one is around digital safety. When you design public spaces, you are connecting some people for the first time, either to the internet or even to technology itself. So it is very important to reflect upon what guardrails are put in place to make sure the people who are using the connectivity are safe. Are you doing advanced filtering? Are you running trainings on digital safety and protection? What measures have been designed in so that community feels safe and long-term embraces this? Because whenever issues come up that are related to safeguarding because of technology in the community, then you find that community is drawing back. They feel like this is a harm in their community. A lot of this training goes a long way to make sure that communities embracing technology, communities embracing the initiatives that you are putting together. Then lastly, I think peer learning, what I've noticed heavily, because people are congregating in one space, this becomes sort of an area where everyone meets in the evenings or in the mornings, a place where the teacher can bring students to learn. It becomes this area where community is supporting each other. If someone knows how to create an email, they'll support two other people to do that. And a lot of this has a sort of ripple effect within the community. And as I finalize, I want to say that community networks should not be separate from public access models. The two should be able to coexist, so that for people who are really in a place where they may not be able to afford some of the services that are at the community network level, that we are extending this impact via the public access model. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Steve, for those really rich observations there, clearly born of a significant amount of experience with a great variety of public access facilities. Now I would like to invite Immaculate Laker from one of our partners, BOSCO, also in Uganda, northern Uganda this time actually. And Immaculate's going to talk about their experience with public access facilities as part of their overall project with community networks and community access initiatives. Over to you, Immaculate.
Sorry, thank you, Mike, and the rest of the team for this opportunity to share with you the experience from BOSCO Uganda. BOSCO is an abbreviation for Battery Operated System for Community Outreach. We are based in the northern part of Uganda, and we we work with the rural communities in northern Uganda. Started in 2007. This community had a 2 decade of civil war, and then BOSCO came into as a solution to address the gap, the digital gap that was created by the war then. So since then, we have created ICT community centers in 54 different communities, rural communities within northern Uganda. And these centers, how we come about it is we work with the local government officials who are within these communities to identify an established group who is active and already doing something. So through the identified group, we do an assessment, and then if they're eligible, we work with them. First is they give us a premise where we can install the community ICT center, and then that is part of the ownership and the security. Then later, when we establish during the installation, we also have them participate as we install the community ICT center, and then we have series of trainings to this group and then part of the community. The first training we do is the leadership and management training, which is for the group itself who is managing the ICT center. So the leadership and management is basically to build the capacity of this group to manage the ICT center well. It entails things like governance, risk management, conflict management, gender, etc. And then after this, building the capacity on leadership and management, we then go into the digital literacy skills. So we ask them to identify at least 12 people from within the community, or even the group members as part of it, and we train them as trainers in digital literacy. And then also the digital literacy has digital security embedded in it. And then after a period of a month, we come back to train them on basic maintenance of computers and solar energy. At all our ICT community centers, we use solar energy to power those computers, and we use low-powered computers at these centers. So each center has between 5 to 11 computers. So after the basic maintenance and the basic maintenance training, we also have other trainings like entrepreneurship training, but also we have a platform, our intranet, where it also acts as a marketplace for the community members, because most of these community members deal in agriculture or produce buying and selling, farming. So, and then small businesses. So this intra-market also for their products, and then also to connect from one center to another. At these ICT centers, the trained TOTs carry on the training to the rest of the community members. We really involve the leadership of the communities, right from the local. There is the government, the smallest government leadership is called Local Council 1. So in the MOU, we also involve the Local Council 1, and then we involve the person in charge of community development within the local, within that community. And then for the sustainability, within the within the ICT center, we have printers that generate some money for the ICT center. Most of the schools within or nearby these centers leverage on the community center for printing schools exams, also for registration online of their pupils and teachers for research. So they get some little money from the printing, photocopying, and then we also have a camera, which they also use it for generating some small income for the ICT center. Then the TOT approach has worked for us for the sustainability. But we still have a challenge with it because most of the members we train as TOTs, they get jobs, they move to other places, but the multiplier effects, the TOT multiplier effect has made us sustainable in that regards. And then also this community, these groups come up together and form group called Village Saving and Loan. They have a policy that 10% of their savings go towards the ICT center, the sustainability model we have been using, and then partnering with other, for example, radio stations for their towers. We partner with them because we use the point-to-point connection, which requires a lot of towers in between. So we partner with radio stations, and that has helped us to be sustainable. Then, yeah, the use of solar energy. These communities are very remote, no government facilities, but also the solar energy power that we use at the center is used for charging phones at those communities. So they also generate a small fee from that. Then the internet, of course, the community themselves come up with a fee that their community can afford to access the internet. Initially, we have been giving it free, but it has been a challenge also for us to buy internet. So we have incorporated that. And then lastly, we are in connection and then negotiation with the local government offices to incorporate these ICT centers in their budgeting, annual budgeting, such that they can have a small maybe money dedicated towards supporting these ICT centers. Thank you.
Thank you, Immaculate. Really appreciate those insights and expressions from your deep experience there, and in particular, thank you for taking us through the various services that are provided at the centre. I think that's very insightful. Now I would like to welcome the founder of the Digital Empowerment Foundation, Osama Nmanza, to give us a few remarks from his deep experience with the many hundreds of public access facilities that DEF supported in the installation in India. So we're circling back to India now, and I look forward to hearing a little bit more from our next participants on the experience locally in India. Thank you. Over to you, Osama.
Thank you, Mike, and it's great that you are trying to moderate from far away to all the people who are sitting here in person. Yeah, so just quickly, I won't take too much because I was not supposed to be originally on the panel, but Digital Empowerment Foundation has learned from people like Michael of Air Jaldi and many such people like Rajneesh of ISOC and many other organizations about the issues on last mile access. And for the last decade or so, we have been working with ISOC, APC, and many other organizations to find a frugal solution, technological solution for last mile access, because last mile access is just not a solution to a unavailability of technological access, but it is also a solution for empowerment. Most of the people who live in unconnected area are poor, rich in knowledge, rich in resources, rich in everything that we consume. They are the producers, but unfortunately they are unconnected, and because of that we miss their knowledge, we miss their resources, we miss their prosperity and their access to many of the rights. And that actually inspired Digital Empowerment Foundation that access to information is as equitably required to be available for the poor as anybody else who is living in an urban area or a city area. And then we started working and figured out that it's not a rocket science. You can always do a last mile access by very affordable means. And we learned few tricks. We realized that there is something called free spectrum or unlicensed spectrum called 2.4 gigahertz and 5.4 gigahertz. We also learned that you can do point-to-point connectivity. We also learned that you don't need to build a tower, but you can use somebody's house on the top, and you can put a small little antenna, or you can use older antenna, or you can use so many things, resources which is coming from the people. So that is how we started building, and now DEF has a reach of about more than 250 locations in the country where we have put in last mile connectivity, which is managed by the community itself. We also learned that it is important that last mile connectivity, like telephone operation or any gadget operation, also needs local resources to operate. For example, if your fridge is not working, you don't go all the time to AMC and call the engineer. You need to figure out some of the things yourself. Right? If your light is not working, it will at least know how to open the holder, or find out the green wire and the red wire, how to connect them. Similarly, in Wi-Fi also, you need to learn few things. So we also, I remember 1.5 decades back, some of our people went to Michael's place in Dharamshala and learned how to do small connectivities, how to do Wi-Fi connectivity, how to build a Wi-Fi network and things like that. We also learned how to break the rule and connect some of the things which is not allowed, but we don't do this all the time. That was only as a learning. The bottom line is that last mile access is not a technology issue. It is also not as much a regulatory issue. It is an issue of the consideration that last mile access is an important public infrastructure that is required to do poverty alleviation. That is the crux of the message that I want to convey. And we have a miles to go, because India has got 805 or plus districts. Out of that, at least close to 400 are backward districts. There are about 6,600 or 7,000 blocks. Out of that, about 3,000 blocks and about close to 100,000 panchayats are almost not meaningfully connected. So we have a lot of work to do about last mile access, and so we still have to go a long way. We have to capitalize on the opportunity, see it as an opportunity, but at the end of it, make sure that the community gets connectivity and manage their own connectivity. Mike, I hope the comments were okay, but if you have any question, I will be happy to reply.
Well, thanks, Osama, for really touching on those very important aspects about the need for this kind of access and the extent of the issues that we still face in terms terms of actually reaching so many unconnected people. You have a big challenge ahead of you there. It looks like you've got some good starting points to build on. With that said, I'd love to invite our impromptu speaker. Thank you for joining us, Michael Ingul there from Air Jaldi with his vast experience. If you could give any insights on the public access role in provision of last mile connectivity, we'd love to hear them. Over to you, Michael. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. And I was impromptu here, but Osama is an old friend, and as those of you who know Osama know, you can't say no to Osama. So I think Osama and I, first of all, started roughly at the same time, and we share the same goal in terms of what is it all for. And empowerment is such a strong word, and we should not just throw it out of the lingo because it's become overused. It is what it is about. We slightly differ in a couple of things, and as I was impromptu, I quickly jotted some notes. So when I think about our work, and kind of if I am thinking of sharing some of these lessons with you, the first question that I always ask myself is, for who? Who are we doing this for? We're doing this for ourselves as an organization, whether we're a for-profit or a non-profit, but we're also doing it for the communities that we serve. I just shared a quote with Osama. Old Seneca, the Roman philosopher, said that if you don't know where your ship is heading, to which port it's heading, no wind is favorable. So we should never lose track of that because we get swayed by a variety of interests, internal and external. The second question, which is really, really important in the context of community networks, is by whom? And to me, when I always think of community networks, I break this one further into two things. The first thing is the structure and the ownership. That's a very, very big question in community networks. And to me, that's the crux of it. Is the ownership, the physical and financial ownership with the community, or are some of the revenues such as they are shared with the community? The second question is about the technology. Who runs the network? And that's a very, very, very different question. My experience, or our experience, Air Jaldi is an Indian company working in 10 states in India, a variety of districts, is that this is not a simple technological problem. It's in the same way that connectivity lends itself to economies of scale, technology complexity grows, maybe not exponentially, but definitely more than in a linear fashion. So the minute you move beyond a small network, you're faced with a whole range of technical challenges. Not least also, it's not least, but in addition to that, there are legal challenges. Small organizations perpetually have a problem with running it, so you end up either being subsumed by somebody else or being subject to somebody else. There are ways to deal with it, similar to ownership. Cooperatives is something that comes to mind. The third thing is, as we think of connectivity and bringing connectivity, I think, when we started, say 2007, 2008, it was about bringing connectivity. Connectivity will be there. It wasn't there. People will connect and development will emerge almost like spontaneous combustion, if you will. The reality now is very, very different. The internet now is at least three things. First and foremost, connectivity. Without physical infrastructure, without speed and stability, there's no internet. But immediately, once you have that, we need to think of content and we need to think of meaning. What content are we consuming and for what purpose? Now, I am a great believer in the freedom of the internet. I don't think it's our role as internet service providers to tell consumers what to consume. The best that we can do is lead them and show them what are productive ways of using the internet, economically, socially, in terms of their personal voice and in terms of the voice of their communities. Thanks.
Nice. Mike, do you allow me to say a couple of sentences about, so I also wanted to say to the audience here is that Michael didn't talk about his, even though he runs a for-profit company, he didn't pitch for his company. But let me also tell you that how as a for-profit at a very frugal profiteering and all that, he has been able to manage. They are in 11 states. All the states, wherever you go and see Air Jaldi, you will find them in the most rural areas. Their clients are all either very civil society driven or community driven organization, and they are serving with connectivity, a stable connectivity in the areas where no stable connectivity otherwise is available, which is a very good thing, because that is where the even service are not available. We always say that many people give you the connectivity, but it doesn't work. It's all the time buffering. So that's another meaningful connectivity has a lot of things. And thanks for doing this, Michael. But I think there is a lot of opportunity.
Thanks for adding the background there, Sam. I appreciate it. I want to allow enough time for our final speaker, who has a very interesting experience also in India from BAIF. So without further ado, Pooja, would you like to make some remarks on public access and the unique model that BAIF has come up with in terms of a mobile intermediary, I would put it, with the EDOS program. Please go ahead, Pooja.
Yes, thank you, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Pooja. I'm with BAIF for last 20 years and look after the ICT initiatives at BAIF. So today I'll be talking about the Pathadi Community Network, which is in Jawhar Taluka of Palghar district of Maharashtra. So this is a tribal remote area. So BAIF works with rural poor and tribal areas, a lot of tribal areas. So Pathadi again is a tribal area which was deprived of a basic mobile network. So with the help of IIT, we were able to create a good infrastructure which brought in good mobile network, and consequently we could also, with the help of IIT Bombay again, got internet connectivity in this community network. Now that the community, so today's focus is more about common access centers. So with digitization, what we see is that during the initial period, urban areas did have this common access centers where rural youth or the population would go to such centers to access internet, whether they had to fill in some educational forms or other kind of services. But with digitization, now that is not the situation here in India, in urban areas, but the situation is the same in remote areas. Though internet is available, there is no such common point where the rural poor or the rural youth can go to and access the digital world. Like now everything has gone digital, but though they have internet, they don't know how to use it for the benefit of the community or even for the self-development. So we developed a model which we call as a EDOS model. So we equip her with some equipment and trained her how to use internet for the benefit of the community. So what she is doing is she is providing all the digital services to the community, to the villagers. The digital services, I mean, whether they are financial utility, whether there are education schemes that are announced by government or other benefit schemes that are announced by the government. So she is like a mediator between the digital world and the villagers for providing all the digital services at their doorsteps. So going ahead, she is also creating an awareness among the community about how this digital availability of internet can be used or accessed for the benefit, for their own benefit, for the benefit of the family, for the benefit of the community. So she is doing this. By doing this, she is also gaining a lot of confidence. She is gaining a lot of good social standing in the community, and the sustainability of the program is ensured that by the service fees that she is charging for the services that she is providing. Now, in case anybody approaches her for withdrawing money, she charges some nominal fees for the service that she is providing. providing. So that is making the whole initiative sustainable. She is also providing other services like printing, scanning, photocopying, and all sorts of digital services that can be provided, which the villagers otherwise did not get at their doorstep and had to travel to the nearby town for availing these services. So this is the kind of community network that BAIF is operating, and now we have replicated this initiative, and now we see that these EDOs are now becoming like a common access point, or here in India we call them as common service centers. So more or less like common service centers where all kind of digital services are available at the doorstep of the villagers as per their convenience at a nominal fees. So I think like Mike was also saying, the internet may be available, but people don't know how to use it effectively for their benefit or for the benefit of the community. So with this model, we have created a environment where they can easily access all kinds of digital services.
Thanks so much, Pooja. That's really interesting. And speaking to the success of the model, I gather there are dozens of EDOSs now following the same strategy. So that's really exciting. Thanks to all of the panelists and the interventions from the floor for a very valuable session. I think hopefully we've all learned something here and we've got some ideas to take forward. So can we have a round of applause for everyone who's been in the panel here? And thanks very much for giving us the time to talk about public access facilities, and good luck.